Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about the secret to Fallout's development success. I don't want to talk about whether or not you think Fallout was a good game or not, but I want to talk about why the actual development process of the game went so well. And by the way, this shirt is a complete coincidence. Just happened to come out of the closet. In my life, things just happen to come out of the closet. I almost called this video, "That's dumb." Because I've seen and heard this phrase very often, online and in person. And it often immediately shuts down discussion. And ironically, many people think that the last person to speak won the argument, especially the person who was the last one to speak. But all they managed to do was to end discussion with them. People will still talk about this. They just won't include that person anymore. So you haven't won the discussion, you've just shut down the discussion. Because the best games weren't made from the last idea that was discussed. They're made from the best idea that was discussed. And I've talked about this on this channel, so I'm going to reference a few videos as I go along because I think that there's things I don't want to dive into as deeply as I have in those videos, but I have a whole video about brainstorming and why it's absolutely necessary and why it's so hard to have discussions like that. And one thing I've talked about how I've seen less discussion lately and more just capitulation. I've worked with people who go, just tell me what to do. Tell me what you want me to do. Recently, a coworker told me about the Abilene paradox, which I had never heard of. And you can Google it. But in short, what it is people will often think that some decision was made because everybody wanted it. But instead it was the decision they went with because nobody really objected to it. Nobody wanted to drive to Abilene for lunch. But they did because somebody suggested it and nobody objected. And it turns out even the person who suggested it wasn't really that fond of the idea. That happens all the time in video game development because too many people think that discussion is argument, and discussion is not argument. If you treat discussion as argument, then ideas will never be questioned, much less really tested. And so your game will go out with a bunch of things that somebody thought should go in. No one ever pushed back on it. Nobody ever implemented it, tested it, and went, no, that's not very good. We should change that. I see this happen among game developers, but I also see this happen frequently with publishers where they would just tell you, yeah, you got to add a tutorial level. Yeah, you got to add microtransactions. Yeah, we want this to be a subscription game. And that has nothing to do with your design, and it's probably not for the best, but you're going to do it. And I see it happen among gamers. I go on forums and somebody will be talking about something and someone else will go, that's dumb. There's no deep discussion. There's no support about why they don't like it. It's just, that's dumb. You're stupid for thinking that. And then the discussion ends. And again, that person thinks, I won that argument. No, those people are still discussing it. They're just not including you anymore. So this gets back to why I think Fallout was a great game. I've heard it say it's great because it had a good balance between dark and humor. Maybe. I've even said, well, the team was all working towards the same goal, that we were all making the same game. Sure. Maybe it was because I'm devilishly handsome. No, that's not the reason. Fallout was great because we pushed each other during development. And we pushed each other pretty hard. We asked ourselves difficult questions about what we were doing. Should that creature look like that? Should that character talk like that? Should that map be that size? We questioned ideas, we would discuss them, we would defend them, and we would offer better ones. And features were replaced frequently, including some really big ones, and that was scary. I have a video about ideas that I had that got rejected throughout my career. And it was always because something better came along. And without that discussion, you won't get the better feature. Without the better feature, you won't make a great game. You're making an okay game. So because of that, because features got replaced in Fallout during its development as better ideas came along, the game was better for it. And this is something that's kind of overlooked, I think, in development now, because people look back at successful games and go, oh, that game was successful, and they start looking at features in it. Oh, that game was so good because the lore was consistent, or that game was good because the world was so open, or that game was good because the main storyline was really engaging. Yes, but how did that get made? How did you get such a great open world? How did you get such an engaging storyline? Because it was probably pitched and changed again and changed again and refined and changed and swapped and refined again. You have to do that. If you think that's not part of game development, my guess is you haven't done game development. But it's also why I think solo development is so hard. It's so soul-crushingly difficult because you don't have someone that you can bounce those ideas off of who will give you honest responses. I know a lot of people say, oh, I tell my partner or I tell my best friend and we bounce ideas off each other. And I'm like, do they really question your ideas? Do they really push back and say, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure that feature belongs in there? Are you sure that zone belongs and it's consistent with all the other zones you're making? If they don't do that, then you're not really having a discussion. You're basically just having a one-sided monologue. So I wanted to push that because I think what I've just said here, which is having real brainstorms, real discussions, which sometimes sound heated but are important, I think that has been lost. And also, it comes up in a lot of my videos. If you go back and watch my videos about Fallout, about the timeline, about ideas getting rejected, it's pretty clear in the brainstorming video. This is something that comes up over and over and over and over. So I felt like I better make a video about this and just double down on it, which is you need to make a game with people who will offer you objections and ask you to defend the ideas that are going in. And not just to me, if I'm the project leader or game director, but if the lead artist decides something should look a certain way, people should be allowed to ask that person why. If the narrative designer writes a character a certain way, people should be allowed to go, I don't know if that character's working. Why are you writing that character that way? Because just saying that's dumb and I don't like it just ends the discussion and you won't have ended up making the game better. You have to have discussions on things. And that's really important. I have a whole video called The Importance of Conversation. So I recommend you watch that as well. I will link all these videos below. And have a good day.